I am here with John Ramdeen and Robin Black. Usually I say lots of news to get to. There isn't a whole lot.
Sure.
When the biggest story out there is what happened between Ronda Rousey and Paige Van Zandt, I can honestly tell you, there's not an ounce of me that cares. So let us move on, because a fight that is in the works, a lightweight bout involving Tony Ferguson and Michael Chiesa. John Ramdeen has already signed himself up for this fight. I think a lot of people would love to see this fight at 155 pounds. It's not Khabib Nurmagomedov if you're Tony Ferguson, the opponent he had wanted. But Michael Chiesa, to me, is a surging lightweight into the top 10 at this point. And fighting Tony Ferguson, that's an excellent fight if you're in South Dakota.
I have to agree 100%. You and I were having this discussion. We've all had this discussion about the 155-pound division. It's hard to argue. It's looking like it's the best of all time, whether you're number 20 or number 18 or number 6 on that list. It's just filled with ridiculous talent, and it's been great to see Michael Chiesa's his evolution. We were in Las Vegas to see him take out Jim Miller, and it's like, wow, okay. We knew the guy was good, but to see him get better and better every time he steps inside of the cage, and just his confidence, we've talked to him, he said this is what he's meant for. He's ready to get to the top of that division. He understands that it's going to be a rough road if you want to get yourself the UFC title at 155 pounds.
That was a hell of a class on Ultimate Fighter. When you look at Ally Quinton, James Vick, Miles Jury, and Michael Chiesa was the one who came out on top of that. I mean, that to me is a season of the Ultimate Fighter that you look back on, and it was quite the impressive series of lightweights that came off of that show.
If we go back 2 years, the prototypical lightweight was a modified wrestler who was very physically strong, cut a lot of weight, and built the whole game around. Gray Maynard, perfect example. Now the guys that are moving up to the top are very different than that. The reason we were so interested in Tony versus Khabib is because they operate outside of the parameters of what the textbook says are the proper ways to fight. On the cage, you do this. At distance, you do one of these different things. Takedowns work this way. You get up. They work differently. And Michael Chiesa also operates outside of those parameters. So whether you got Tony, Chiesa, or you got Khabib, any combination of these three guys, Ally Quinta to some degree when or Quinta, whatever you want to call him, when he does come back. I'm a big fan of Raging Al. Any of these guys are redefining what it is to fight in the lightweight division, and any of these matchups are killer.
Yeah, so good.
Is this going to be the overload period for the UFC? Because they are running Thursday, Friday, Saturday is UFC 200, and this South Dakota card falls on the Wednesday coming out of it. If ever there was a UFC hangover effect, that South Dakota card is going to feel it, and I feel you need some quality, because I think it is going to be your diehard fans that are coming back on that Wednesday night for an entire card.
Yeah, but luckily, they have
I know it's not an issue for you.
No, it's not an issue for me, but the fact is they have the talent. You're trying to sell pay-per-views, you're trying to sell the best story you possibly can, and when you have guys like Chiesa and Beneil Dariush and Michael Johnson, who again are around that number 10 mark or 12 mark or 8 mark, whatever it is in the imaginary rankings, you're trying to develop this story to see who the next title challengers are, who are the next stars. Of course, you add Conor McGregor to that mix. That right now, like I said, 155 pounds, very exciting because they hit hard, they move very, very well. They possess all the skill set and the power and the speed of the smaller guys.
One thing we see in 2016 is whether you're a business or a fighter or whatever you are, you get more efficient. You get better at doing the things that you do well, and you fix the things that you don't do well. We're seeing fighters accelerate and get better much quicker, and we're seeing the UFC really refine their systems, because lately, there are brilliant matchups that make a lot of sense, because Joe and Sean's systems of matchmaking have gone from, we got to fill all these cards, to we've developed efficient systems to be able to do it and pick one. Shevchenko versus Holly Holm just got announced. Makes a lot of sense stylistically as well. Is Shevchenko in a position to jump up to that point? If not, she's a stylistically beautiful matchup against Holly Holm. There's so many good fights being made. And so, to Pollock's point, well, we got 3 in a weekend and then a Wednesday. They're doing it. Yeah. It's working. People are watching it. The fights are good. They're able to promote. The systems are getting better and better. Yeah,
and you mentioned the Shevchenko-Holm fight. Me and John talked about it. That's the same card. Glover Teixeira, Anthony Johnson expected to fight in Chicago. Are you guys surprised at all that it appears Holm and Shevchenko will headline that card in that 5-round main event position? Because to me, Johnson and Teixeira, that to me is a given. The winner of that fight is going off to fight for the title next. But Holm very well could as well, and Shevchenko's a bit of a wild card. That is a very difficult fight.
It's a very difficult fight, but already, and I will probably do a breakdown for that Fox 20 one on this fight. I'm excited to do so. You look at it, and Holly Holm has the ability to manage and makes you chase, and Shevchenko is a much smaller fighter. She's a small 135er. Holm is a very large and powerful 135er. Holm has some real advantages, and these are not coincidences. When we look, why is this the main event instead of that one? There are metrics, there are numbers, there are Q ratings, there's all this analysis that can be done where they look and say, more people are interested in this fight. Some of those more people may not be you or you or you, but they are in general more people that want to see this fight. That's why it's the main event.
All right, coming up this weekend, Stefan Struve is going to be in action taking on Antonio Bigfoot Silva, and up next we are going to take a look at his training preparation for the Bigfoot fight.